Hey guys, what's going on? It's Michael here again, and I'm showing you my face today because I have a nice face and I want you to see it. I apologise if I'm a little bit sweaty and greasy. I'm just back from the gym. Yeah, but anyway, as you may or may not know, it is the UFC on Fuel TV 1 event tonight, the first time they've done the UFC on Fuel TV. It is only available on Fuel TV in the US, and it's available on UFC.tv on the internet for people around the world, especially us here in the UK. There are only three real fights on the card that I'm interested in, so I'm just going to give you an overview of them, give you my quick predictions, and yeah. I would usually do this over some UFC Undisputed 3 gameplay, but that actually hasn't arrived yet. It doesn't get released here in England until Friday. I have it on pre-order. It should hopefully be here tomorrow or Friday. But yeah, let's get into this. The first fight I'm looking at, I said there's only 3 fights I'm really interested in. The first one is at featherweight, and it's actually the main prelim fight on Facebook, and it is Jonathan Brookins versus Wagner Rocha at 145 pounds, as I already said, featherweight division. Both guys, it's a weird fight this in the sense that it's a grappler versus grappler. You don't usually get a fight where it's two really high level grapplers with limited striking skills facing off. Jonathan Brookins, his strengths and weaknesses. In terms of his striking, he has okay striking, but he has been knocked out a fair few times. His main weakness is he keeps his chin very, very high up in the air and keeps his jaw out, which means it's easier to hit, and he got knocked out that way by Jose Aldo and I think most recently by Eric Koch. However, grappling is his speciality. He won the Ultimate Fighter 13 as a lightweight, but featherweight is his predominant weight class. And he won the Ultimate Fighter using predominantly wrestling. He's a very good wrestler, particularly with Greco-Roman trips from the clinch. He uses a lot of lateral drops to get on top of his opponent, as you saw in the Ultimate Fighter finale against Michael Johnson. And he has very good jiu-jitsu and ground and pound from the top. I haven't really seen him too much off his back, but I'd suggest against Wagner Rocha he will be aiming to not be on his back very much, because Wagner Rocha, as I'm going to talk about in a second, is a very high level jiu-jitsu artist. So yeah, on to Wagner Rocha. As I just touched upon, he is a jiu-jitsu specialist. He is a very high level competition winning jiu-jitsu black belt. However, he has a very limited striking game, and he doesn't have the best wrestling either. He is very much a specialist. If he gets you down, he will look to submit you, and that is his entire game pretty much. He's had a tough run in the UFC so far. I think he's lost a couple of fights, both by decision, basically where he couldn't take the fight to the ground and he got outstruck. So what I'm guessing Jonathan Brookins' game plan will be to do, although I said he doesn't have very good striking, I would say it's better than Rocha's. I'd say on standing up, he has the more diverse attacks. He uses, punches, elbows, a few kicks here and there, whereas Wagner Rocha really is just a defensive stand-up fighter, and he just tries to get you to the ground. So overall, I think Brookins will have the striking and wrestling ability to keep the fight on the feet, and I'm looking for Jonathan Brookins to win this by decision. The next 2 fights that I'm looking at are both on the main card, and they're actually the main event and the co-main event of the evening. The co-main event is in the heavyweight division, and it pits Stefan Struve against Dave Herman. Dave Herman recently made his UFC debut, beating John Olavinamo, I think by TKO in the second round. He is a wrestler and a striker, but he kind of employs the Chuck Liddell tactic of using his wrestling in reverse to keep the fight standing up and to out-kickbox his opponents. He has good ground and pound when he gets on top, but his jiu-jitsu is fairly limited. Stefan Struve, on the other hand, is called the skyscraper, aptly, as he is the tallest fighter in the UFC at a massive 6'11". He came into the UFC predominantly as a wrestler and grappler. He's known for his comebacks against Denis Stoyanich, where he was bloodied up and came back to win the fight, and against Christian Moorcraft, where he got beaten to hell in the first round. Actually, his lip was swollen up to about 4 times the size, and he had a bit of his tooth knocked out, but he came back to knock out Christian Moorcraft in the second round. As I touched upon, he came into the UFC predominantly as a grappler. He's very good both off his back and off the top position with ground and pound. and off his back he will use his long limbs. Being a 6'11" guy, he has a huge reach and very long legs and arms, which he will use to wrap up triangle chokes, arm bars, that sort of stuff. However, training in Holland, which is where he's from, some of the best kickboxers ever have came out of Holland, and he's training with very high level guys, and his kickboxing looks better and better fight by fight. The fact that he was able to stay in there with Pat Barry and kickbox Pat Barry to the point where he was competently doing so before he ended up submitting Pat Barry shows how high level his striking has become. Overall, I think Dave Herman's tactic will be to keep the fight standing and to try and knock out Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve has been knocked out a few times in his UFC career. He was knocked out by Junior Dos Santos and Roy Nelson, both very quickly, and then he was knocked out quite recently by Travis Brown. So what I'm thinking is Dave Herman will try and keep the fight standing up, avoid the ground game at all costs, and try and beat Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve, although he will feel confident on his feet against Dave Herman, where I think he has the best chance of winning the fight is getting Dave Herman to the ground, either by pulling guard or by taking him down and getting on top. If he gets on top, he can utilise his strong ground and pound game, and if he's on the bottom, he can use those long legs, as I touched upon, to lock up a triangle or potentially another submission. Overall, I'm a massive fan of Stefan Struve. He's one of my favourite fighters, and I'm going to pick Stefan Struve for this fight by submission. Next, and the final fight that I'm going to look at, is the main event of the evening in the welterweight division, and it's a big one. It is Diego Sanchez fighting for the first time in nearly a year since his controversial decision win over Martin Kampmann, and he is facing one of my hottest prospects at the moment, and a guy I think will cause massive strides in the next few years, and that's Jake Ellenberger. Both guys are on good winning streaks at the moment. Diego Sanchez has looked like a renewed fighter since going back up to welterweight, and Jake Ellenberger is 5-1 in his past 6 fights, with his only loss being a controversial decision loss to Carlos Condit, the now interim champion of the welterweight division. Diego Sanchez, an alumni from the Ultimate Fighter 1. He's actually one of the Ultimate Fighter 1 winners, beating Kenny Florian in the final. He predominantly is a ground and pound and jiu-jitsu artist. He will use his strong wrestling game in most situations to try and get the fight to the ground, where he can either unload with ground and pound from the top position or try and lock up a submission. He recently has, over the years, he has developed his striking game, but he doesn't have the power or maybe the technique that I would think Ellenberger would have. So in my opinion, Diego Sanchez will probably try and take this fight to the ground. Diego Sanchez, one of the biggest things he's known for is his relentless pace. He will not let up. He will keep going and keep going and keep going all throughout the 3 rounds. This is a 3-round main event, guys, not a 5-round main event, so bear that in mind. And what I suggest he will try and do is he'll try and smother Ellenberger up against the cage. He'll try and wear out Jake Ellenberger. Jake Ellenberger is a very thickly muscled guy and could potentially fatigue if Sanchez puts enough pressure on him. So I'm thinking Sanchez will try and smother him up against the cage, will try and pressure him, will try and take him down and utilise some ground and pound. Jake Ellenberger, on the other hand, is also a very strong wrestler and also has very good ground and pound if he gets on the top position. However, Jake Ellenberger's main strength is his striking. He has good technique in his striking, and he has ridiculous power. He has genuine one-strike knockout power. If he hits you on the chin, you are in serious trouble, as he's shown recently against Jake Shields and against Sean Pearson. I'm guessing Jake Ellenberger's strategy for this fight will try and be avoid the grappling at all costs, although I said he does have a good top game. He is not known for his jiu-jitsu, and he's probably about equal. I'd maybe give Sanchez a slight edge in wrestling, but Jake Ellenberger is a very strong guy. I'd suggest Ellenberger is going to try and keep it on his feet and knock out Diego Sanchez. Overall, I think it's an interesting fight for both guys, because a win for Ellenberger would push him right up into contention for another bash at Condit, as I touched upon. They had a fight a couple of years ago where Condit won a very controversial decision. And Sanchez has also publicly stated that he thinks if he beats Ellenberger, he should be right up there for a shot at Condit. So it is a fight that has potential repercussions for the winner, and the loser will go a bit further down the pile and have to start rebuilding. It's a tough one to call this. I think it'll be a good fight either way, no matter who wins. I really don't know who to pick. It's really a 50-50 fight. I'm going to go with although I love Jake Ellenberger and I think he is very talented, I'm going to go with Diego Sanchez by decision. I think the layoff will have been good for him. He looks in better shape than he has done recently, and I think his pressure and his cardio will eventually tell, and I expect him to take home a decision win over Jake Ellenberger. So yeah, those are my predictions for the UFC on Fuel 1 TV. Tonight you can watch it live on UFC.tv around the world. I'm not sure what time it starts. It's usually about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock for the prelims, English time, Greenwich Mean Time. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. In the future, I will do this over some UFC Undisputed 3 commentary gameplay, because that should arrive in the next couple of days. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the fights if you're going to be watching them, and let me know your predictions. Cheers.